To conclude the EmergentX 2022 and Beyond Digital Asset Virtual Summit, we'd like to look at another aspect of tokenization, and that is blockchain and green finance. And what better way to conclude a great day of panels than with our next speaker, who is a long-term friend of mine and to everyone in the fintech community here in Hong Kong. Syed Musheer Ahmed is founder and managing director of FinStep Asia, and he'll be sharing insights into blockchain and green finance. Welcome, Musheer.
Thank you very much, Walter, for having me today, and delighted to join the EmergentX event today. I think it's been a lot of very interesting conversations on a variety of use cases for digital assets and the future therein. Today, I would like to share more about the use of blockchain in green finance and the different use cases that we may have. I will be sharing my screen. Just a second. Oops, sorry, my PowerPoint has just restarted. But essentially, when we're looking at the use of blockchain, there are multiple use cases that we can have for a blockchain when it comes to green finance and ESG. The transparency, the traceability, and accountability that it brings to the core is something that's very important to look at for all of us, right from looking at ESG data to issuance of bonds and therein, right? So I will now share my screen. What's happening here? So when we look at the climate concept, this is something that all of us know and have been looking at for, are aware of. The high temperatures are leading to a lot of changes in the way we interact with nature. There's large scale forest and ecological destruction. The amount of forest being cut down, especially rainforests in the Amazon, is quite alarming. And then we are seeing extreme climate events taking place in many parts of the world, extreme floods, extreme wildfires, and both in certain cases in the same cities, right? So when you have extreme wildfires, they tend to burn away all the forests. And then when the heavy rains come in, there isn't enough water being absorbed in the ground, and that leads to more destructive floods. With this in mind, we have seen governments racing to counter climate change. You've had the Kyoto protocols going back many years to the Paris Agreement, which is very defining in terms of the commitments for different nations for their carbon reduction and going towards carbon zero. And each country has different targets ranging from the earliest at 2030 to all the way to 2050. And then there was COP26 last year, where there was also a conversation around use of mitigation outcomes and how we can use carbon credits and better manage that process. So when we look at the Paris Agreement, which is the defining agreement, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement is specifically looking at carbon trading and international trading of carbon credits. This plays a big role in accountability of nations in terms of not just setting targets, but also being able to implement them. So how can we use blockchain for green finance? Essentially, when we look at applications of blockchain for ESG, they can range from looking at traceability of a process. So you can know a project that's being done on using green finance funding can be traced, and we can verify through transparency and traceability about how green is the project, and validate that it is measuring up to the commitments that the bond issuer had said. You can also do data storage, and that provides a review through the process of the green project. Incentivization, you could potentially tokenize this as well as incentivize people better because you're able to bring a bigger market. Information sharing, real-time connectivity with using IoT and blockchain as a combination, and monitoring as an extension of that. So when we're looking at the simplest form for green finance that everybody's talking about is how green bonds and how blockchain is being used for green bonds. We have a classic use case where many countries have now started issuing green bonds. Hong Kong government is one of the places where we have seen the government actively issue green bonds and increase their allocation to green bond funding. So when we look at the use through green bonds, you could use these green bonds for tokenizing and incentivizing. This is how a blockchain structure would help an investor to connect and review what the project is doing. It will allow the workers in the project to, for the carbon credits that they're doing, to exchange it for some kind of a structure, could be a DAI structure, and then use those tokens to make local payments. You could have a whole circle which is encompassing the project. You can, again, as an extension, you could fractionize of an asset. So it could be a windmill, it could wind farm, it could be large scale nuclear projects if you wanted to, and you could fractionize it to allow investment at a broader scale and bring in the retail investors. The Genesis project by the Bank of International Settlements has been one of the key projects in Sorry, did someone speak?
Apologies, Musheer, keep going.
No worries, sorry, 1 second. It looks like I've opened the wrong PDF file. Sorry, 1 second. So talking about Genesis, I'll continue talking about Genesis. The BIS Innovation Hub is an innovation place where both governments and to a certain extent private parties are engaging on, with central banks, are engaging on innovative projects across different use cases. Green finance being one of the ones that the team here in Hong Kong has been leading. We have seen them do work across multiple elements, ranging from green bond that uses the tokenization of green bond for a retail Hong Kong bond, which uses which is on the open blockchain. So, as an example, could be a Stellar blockchain, or it could be a closed loop private blockchain that we have been used to, right? So, that could be constructed with finer details attached to it. Now, when I look at green markets, I have always considered that accountability is one key element, but we also need to ensure that we can have companies that are producing are having data that we can use for a broader use case, right? So when the retail green bonds are looked at, you can then tokenize them, because typically when you have a bond issuance in the market, these bonds can have a very high amount of data, can have a high cost for your amount that you can invest. So for retail investors, they may not be viable. However, through tokenization, you can then make it a lot easier for retail investors to come in. 1 second, my PPT is fixed now. Apologies on this. Right on. Right. So as I was talking, with the Genesis project, they have two prototypes, one for green bond tokenization by the Liberty Consortium and one by Digital Assets in GFT. The Genesis project was done in collaboration of the BIS Innovation Hub with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. So here's a look at how these two different concepts, one being on the open blockchain, as you mentioned, and one with DAML, have a variety of similarities ranging from KYC, full DLT process, control of duplicate subscribers, secondary market functionality, and green transparency functionality. So all of these, as you can see, as features on the project can allow users to not only set up easily and access and pay for it. In fact, they also experimented with the POC for payments using Octopus. So you can actually literally make it as easy as possible. But on the issuer side and the intermediary side, they could also track it very easily in terms of what allocation is happening. So you could avoid duplication and easy settlements, right? Or reconciliation. Key differences between the two prototypes. One is on the public blockchain. As I mentioned, the idea is for direct disintermediated distribution model, useful in markets that want a direct low-cost distribution or do not have an existing legacy infrastructure, while the Damble project is on a permission-based project and it's intermediated distribution model. So you would have banks involved and other existing fixed income market intermediaries, right? Efficiency gains, one of the examples that I was talking about in terms of real world impact when it comes to use of DLT for green bonds. You can see that it can minimize the number of intermediaries. It can allow for immediate distribution, both use cases that we looked at above. It also helps in enhancing security because of the high immutability and generally much more secure blockchain interfaces. In terms of the blockchain itself, and then real-time proof of impact and efficiency and finality of settlements. All of these are pretty important, and we can see that you could have up to 10x savings when it comes to the cost of these green bonds, right? So this is from the Green Digital Finance Alliance study along with HSBC, where you can see that if you're using a standard process, you would you could end up having a cost of all 6.5 million, while with full blockchain automation it could be down to 700,000 USD. I want to quickly move on to the other element where blockchain can be of large use, which is on carbon trading. Carbon trading has been around for the last 2 decades, largely looked as a commodity. It was largely driven, it was in a high amount of volumes in the initial days, but now post Paris Agreement, and as I mentioned with Article 6, we are seeing the market grow. You have the mandatory markets, which a lot of the countries themselves use because of their commitments that they have for carbon neutrality. And these could be for both selling and buying of purchases using national registries and international markets in terms of between governments. While on the voluntary market, individuals, companies, anybody can be involved in this to purchase and offset your carbon footprint. I'll give a few examples of that. It could range from when you do a checkout at a payment platform to any time where you feel you want to offset your carbon footprint. You could go to platforms which will say this has been a carbon footprint amount of driving you've done using hydrocarbon based fuels, or just your food consumption, etc., etc. There's a calculation, a meter can be used, and that can give you an amount of carbon tons that you have generated, and you can then offset that by buying proceeds of a carbon offsetting project across the world. Demand for carbon credits, as per McKinsey, is likely to continue to increase, right? So we are going to see a significant increase over the next few years. One other element is the retirement of carbon credits as they're generated, which means there will be more and more demand for these as more mandatory markets and compliance kicks in. We had yesterday the SEC also talk about reporting of carbon and ESG, carbon generation by companies, which then tells you how important regulators are paying attention to. Now, some case studies on the carbon markets with use of blockchain. Air Carbon Exchange based in Singapore is one of them, who have a DLT based hybrid and decentralized platform that tokenizes carbon credits into standard contracts. They use different contracts based on the quality of the carbon, and this allows for T0 trade execution and for people to be able to trade their carbon credits on their carbon exchange. There are a few others globally around this. In the DAO world, ClimaDAO is a very classic example, which has been also endorsed by some major investors who are using ClimaDAO to do offset their own or their company's footprint. In this case here, Air Carbon is a centralized exchange, while with the ClimaDAO, it's a DAO where it's peer-to-peer transactions that are taking place. You then have other players such as TerraPass that helps in carbon offsetting products and for business organizations and individuals. As I mentioned, you could go onto their platform and you could then offset your carbon footprint. They use blockchain to not only track the projects that you are investing in for your carbon offsetting, but also to tokenize the carbon credits itself for easy trading and easy exchange. Another example of use of blockchain in the ESG space is the use of DLT for ESG registry, which is done by the MAS in Singapore, along with Stacks, where they have used the green stacks, as it's called, to integrate IoT information along with data integration and giving certification on different projects. Some other examples you can see here in terms of sustainable finance and use of blockchain to fight climate change. Climate Impact is an exchange backed by DBS, SGX, Sanachar, and Temasek, founded last year, which is meant to be a market for high quality carbon. They also would be using blockchain for a variety of use cases there. Climate Trade is a product that provides a marketplace similar to TerraPass that we're looking at for people to invest in. And then you have other projects such as FlexiDAO, CircleRise, and others who are looking at traceability. And then you have energy trading, where people can exchange and trade their energy contracts or energy offsetting in different markets where the grids are well connected. That's it. I once again want to thank EmergentX and Esme and the team for having me today. It was a great pleasure to speak to you all, and I hope the presentation gave some insights on the use of blockchain for green finance. I look forward to speaking to any of you if you'd like to get in touch. I can be reached on LinkedIn or through my email. So thanks once again, and Walter, over to you.
Thank you so much, Musheer. It's a great way to conclude the conference and to, as thanks to our guests, what I wanted to do just quickly is wrap up. And I think, Musheer, I'm not sure if it's still your image online or my own, but anyway, we're still live, and wanting to, first off, extend our thanks to the audience. It's been a full day, and we very much enjoyed having all of you here for the course of the day. Also, special thanks to our sponsors, Amber, Animoca Brands, Huobi Tech, Invest HK, FinTech HK, Murray Asset, and also for the facilities here at HashKey Group. Special thanks. I would recommend that you keep following us at EmergentX.io and look for the future conferences, as well as we'll be making videos of this afternoon's conference available to you on social media. Thank you to all of the panelists and moderators, and of course to the organizers and the crew behind the scenes. They're the ones who make all of this work. And then thank you finally to you, our audience. We've had a great day, and we've shared a lot of information. For a young company, EmergentX is very excited by the results of the conference today, and we look forward to sharing with you more in the future. On behalf of EmergentX, Esme Pao, and the team, thank you very much for joining us today at the Digital Asset Virtual Summit, brought to you by EmergentX. I'm Walter Jennings. I've been your MC for the day. Thank you, and have a great afternoon and a good evening. Bye.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.